Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rushcliffe Borough Council January Cabinet meeting. Welcome everyone in the public gallery tonight. Not a very nice night out there, having driven 2.5 hours. So I can appreciate and thank you for your presence tonight. Apologies for absence, please. Chair. Declaration of interest. Minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of December 2019. Can I have a proposer to accept those minutes, please? Councillor Mason, seconder. Councillor Moore, all those in favour? Okay, any opposition? Group leaders, questions? No, those. Okay. Item 5 is citizen questions. Mr. Wilson. So, Mr. Wilson, if you'd like to ask the question, and you'll get a response then from the appropriate cabinet member. Okay.
Hello. Sorry about the glasses straight away. So, right, at the initial meeting between Rushcliffe Borough Council and the Friends of Lutterell Hall, it was clearly stated by Rushcliffe Borough Council that it was an excellent financial state and that there was no financial requirement to sell Lutterell Hall. The recent survey by Rushcliffe Borough Council stated to keep the hall to make an increase on council tax to renovate the hall. What would be the increase, apologies for the crackling there, what would be the increase, if at all, in council tax for each property in Westbridge year on year?
Okay, Councillor Moore.
The council has a... Could you switch your speaker off? It's okay, thank you. The council has a relatively sound financial position currently, but going forward faces many challenges to ensure it maintains a balanced budget. To have a stable financial position in a difficult financial environment means this council has taken and will continue to take tough decisions through mechanisms such as the transformation programme and how we best use our council assets. Clearly, Lutterell Hall is one such asset, and as with any responsible organisation, this council will continue to look at the viability of all its assets in the interest of all taxpayers. Currently, Lutterell Hall costs the local taxpayer around £51,000 a year, and with estimated capital costs of £275,000 to bring it up to standard. That is the equivalent of £27,500 per annum for the next 10 years. Thus a cost of £78,500 per annum to the local taxpayer. This is the equivalent of £5.56 for a Band D property and will account for 11.46% of the special expense for Westbridge, which in total is currently £48.51. So to reiterate, the cost to the Westbridge taxpayer, as things stand, will be £5.56 on their Band D council tax, assuming Lutterell Hall operates as it currently is, and with the aforementioned projected levels of capital expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry. Sorry, thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, item 6, Chapel Lane Development. Councillor Moore again.
No,
Councillor Edmund, sorry, apologies.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. We've already approved at full council this investment in the future prosperity and well-being for the community in and around Bingham for a new leisure facility, community centre and commercial office block. This paper is really an opportunity to reaffirm the progress we've made, in particular by the Cabinet-led member group overseeing the stages of development. In reaching this stage, the member group has met 4 times and reviewing at each stage the commissioning process so far, including ensuring that stakeholders such as local sports clubs have been consulted. At the last meeting, we discussed the extra costs of £370,000 needed to ensure compliance with our carbon reduction goals. We also considered the inclusion of a movable floor for the swimming pool, but felt that the additional cost compared to the apparent demand from user groups was not justified. And finally, I understand there's been some correspondence concerning the catering facilities available to the community hall, and I would like to publicly reiterate that a fully equipped kitchen is part of the plan and is included in the budget for the community hall. In terms of financial implications, the project is on budget, and with the current forecast standing at 18.8 million, along with £250,000 earmarked for remedial work at Toot Hill School to facilitate the partial withdrawal from existing facilities at the school. I therefore propose the recommendation on pages 5 and then repeated on page 9 that Cabinet approves the REBA Stage 3 design and cost plan recommended by the member group, outlined in appendices 1 and 2, in line with the approved budget, and secondly, Cabinet approves the additional costs associated with the inclusion of the carbon reduction measures in line with the Council's commitment to carbon management.
Thank you, Councillor Edwin. Councillor Moore.
Very happy to second this. It's going to be a superb addition to our leisure facilities and a great replacement for the leisure centre we've got now, which is pretty much worn out. Wearing my hat as a finance man, the carbon reduction price was staggered me a little bit, but I think overall it's absolutely worth it, and we're going down the track now of being carbon neutral. It was good. The contribution we have now received or will be receiving from Bingham Town Council will be going towards the community hall, and I'm glad to see that after a bit of persuasion the officers have deemed rightly that we should have a nice kitchen within the community hall, because I'm sure it's going to be a big success for the community. Very, very happy to second this. I think it's work in progress at the moment, and I look forward to being there at the opening.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Upton.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say that I pleased and endorsed the inclusion of those carbon reduction measures that are set out in item 4.3 of the report. And I think, frankly, the 367,000 or thereabouts of these additional energy efficiency measures are very reasonable in the context of the total cost of the project. So I'm pleased to see that. Happy to support the report.
Thank you. I think it's really important to reflect that this leisure centre and facility, and of course office space as well, reflects the growth in Bingham and all the surrounding villages. We're often talk about Westbridge, but with huge growth over that area, I think it's really important that reflect in the leisure facilities, and all their supporting villages have access to an absolute first-class facility. And if you look at the current facility we are here at the arena, it just shows how good the authority is in delivering something on budget, on time, and has incredible usage and meets requirements of the residents. So I think this is a really good report coming forward. I'm delighted with the progress, and I've had very, very positive feedback from residents. Again, particularly with the kitchen now decision, which you understand is very important. A bit more than a microwave, I think we're going to provide here. But now lighting, of course, it's that is about the sustainability of the facilities and making sure we hire them out, and we can make it a very successful and profitable project, as well as providing those facilities. So proposed by Councillor Edwin, recommendations that are set out there on page. So I've just lost a page there with it right on there. Seconded by Councillor Moore. All those in favour? Good. Thank you. Okay, item 7, which is the establishment of the SIL Special Expense Member Group. I just want to put through a couple of amendments to this paper before it's passed over to the Cabinet member. The first one is on page 19. This will actually be referred to as the Westbridge SIL Special Expense Member Group, and thus referred to as the Westbridge Special Expense Group, because the report as it currently stands omits Westbridge in the actual title. So I think it is important that we put the Westbridge in there. I'd also just like to refer members of this committee to page 24.6. This is about proportionality in terms of actually sits on there, and after discussions that the Conservative group will give up one of the places on this committee, and he will give that to the Green Party to allow representation of Lady Bay, which is felt very important. Obviously, as the paper stands at the moment on proportionality, there's actually no place for the Green Party. So going forward, and I'd like for the record that it's placed that the Conservatives will give it the one place, and that will then pass to the Green Party. So without further ado, I'll pass this then on to Councillor Moore. Thank you.
Well, yes, I had entitled it West Bridgeford Special Expense and Community. I think the comments made by Councillor Robinson are very important because it does clarify this just relates to West Bridgeford. The reason for this report is to potentially allocate community infrastructure levies to West Bridgeford, as currently there is no forum to achieve this. It's also an opportunity to provide greater transparency to the current West Bridgeford special expense. Appendix A in the report gives a breakdown how the current West Bridgeford special expense is spent and where it goes. So it is proposed that a community infrastructure levy special expense group is set up just for West Bridgeford, and this will need to be ratified by full council. This group will look at the current approach to special expenses and will need to assist in setting this budget annually and reviewing its progress every 6 months. It will also be responsible for approving the strategy for the allocation of the community infrastructure levy, which will be subject to public consultation. It is the intention the group meets informally to agree the terms of reference until it is formally ratified by council and the constitution is amended. The group will be chaired by the independent cabinet member for finance. That happens to be me. The group should ideally consist of West Bridgeford councillors and should be based on current proportionality rules. However, I've just written in and subject to the points made by Councillor Robinson as leader of the council. There are a few legal obligations as the community infrastructure levy is a discretionary charge. All authorities taking up the community infrastructure levy regime are required to set up a charging schedule setting out the rates applicable to the area. It must also have regard to matters including the cost of the infrastructure, required funding, other sources of funding, and the effect of SIL on developments in the area. So I'm very happy to make the recommendation in item 2.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Mason.
Thank you for that. I think it's one of the most important words is transparency. It will be very transparent. We're talking potentially a great deal of money, and I think it's important that the people of West Bridgeford know how their money is being spent and how the decisions were made. The other word I think is accountable as well, and so it will all be out there in front of everybody to understand how this money, which will be considerable, will be spent for the betterment of West Bridgeford as a whole. I feel that it is really quite exciting, this SILS. It will mean money for West Bridgeford and how it is spent and how it is allocated, and things will have to be looked at, and there will be winners and there will always be others that don't, but I think it is a really exciting prospect to look at how we can actually use this money for the community and for the businesses as well in West Bridgeford. So I am very happy to support the recommendations on page 19 and also at the end of the report. I think they're very important, and I think that I do certainly agree that the people that are on that group are from West Bridgeford because it will be their decision, and I'm very pleased that the Greens have had this extra place given to them. I consider Lady Bay a very important part of West Bridgeford, and so I'm very happy to support the recommendations. Thank you.
Just to point out, this actually is an advisory group which will be advising to Cabinet. It's not actually making a decision. So it will actually sit together and advise then the Cabinet and make the recommendations in terms of the financing on that side. As Councillor Mason Moore said, the SIL is a new government initiative, certainly to Rushcliffe. It will be generating a lot of money as we see the development, and particularly Ed Walton already. The new developments that are going in there are going to actually create a lot of money, and it's important that we have that democracy in place, and this group will be tasked in making sure they come back with those recommendations. And just one of the discussions I've said is that they should work very, very closely with with the groups around the area. As we know, Westbridge has many groups, and it is very important that their voice is heard, and they should come through the elected members in there and get their input. And then this group will produce a list of priorities, which you could then make that recommendations to the actual cabinet. The other important point on this is slightly different to any other group we've done, because this is actually ongoing, and it will, in such that normally we have task and finish, like the Bingham group, for instance, developing the Bingham Leisure Centre. This will actually be in place for ongoing, as long as the SIL's in place and special expenses. So that is slightly different from previous groups, isn't it, that we've actually set up there. But I do stress it is advisory, but it is absolutely sure, has been stressed, that it is representative of Westbridge, and I'm obviously delighted that Lady Bay will be represented with our Green members there as well from that side. Any other comments on this? Councillor Edwin.
I was just going to comment on the fact that, you know, when we define West Bridgeford for the purposes of this, it is very much West Bridgeford as a whole. And, you know, so it does take in Lady Bay, it takes in Gamston, it takes in Ed Walton, and takes in Compton Acres, as well as the centre of West Bridgeford.
Yeah. No, it's a very big point. Everyone, if you spoke to probably 10 people in Bridgeford, they would actually all define it differently in terms of place. So it is actually key that we do remind people it's actually defined by the special expenses boundaries, so to speak, and they do cover the likes of the Ed Walton, Gamston, etc. from around that side. So, okay, so as recommended by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Mason, the recommendations that are set out there on page 19, and also with the amendment I put through at the start, this will be called the West Bridgeford Special Expenses and SIL Group. And also for the record that the Lady Bay will have representation, and the Conservative group will give up that one place through proportionality to the Ring group. All those in favour? Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I need to read the following for the exclusion of public. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you, Paul, for the question. Thank you.